Howdy, y'all. We're going to talk about my favorite summer books. Let's get it on. So the first book I read was called Rise and Kill First. Yes, that's like, what do you do first thing in the morning? I go kill. This book was crazy. So whether you hate Israel or love Israel, I hope you love it. But either way, this is about all the assassinations, crazy stories that are real from Mossad, from like all their like dark underground secret people, and it's insane. Like they have poisoned people with toothpaste, they have letter bombs, and it's stuff where they did drones and all this crazy attack stuff from the 80s. So if you're trying to kill people, it's a great book to read, or if you just want to learn some of behind the scenes of assassinations and all this stuff. I'm like shocked I never heard about this one before. Highly recommend it. Number 2, this one came from Nick Gray. It's called The Art of Gathering. And so if you have dinner parties, if you have meetups, if you have conferences, if you have events, I highly recommend reading this book. A lot of the things to talk about are like, how do you structure your event? How do you work on the objective? How do you decide who to invite? How many people to invite? Like one of the things that I learned from this book was that, have you ever had an event and then you don't know how to end it? You're like, should we leave? Is this thing still on? Yeah. And so it talks about strategies about how to stop events when they need to be done and move on with things. Third book I highly recommend and like is called Everybody Lies. So this is a book recommended by Mark Andreessen on his mailing list. In the description, I'll put the link to he had this tweet storm about his favorite books. They're amazing. And this is one of them. So this is a book that you may not be able to go do stuff with for your own business right away, but the thing I really liked about it was just cool ways that people are thinking about data. One of the ones that stood out for me was, do you think more basketball players are from poor families or middle class / upper class families? It's actually the middle class families. And I was shocked because they went and did all this research and showed that stuff. And it was because the families were more stable and they provided structure that the students could actually go to basketball, perform well, and then get to the NBA. And so it's a really interesting book about a bunch of different other studies using data and Google Trends, surprisingly enough, to show how interesting data is or how it's lying to us or what we think we know. Number 4, this is from Bill Gates' reading book list called Evicted. And I was like shocked. Some of these books, I'm like, how have I never heard of these books? Evicted is super interesting. It basically follows 4 or 5 people, I believe in Minnesota, about how life is getting evicted. What's it like to be on the street or go to shelters or be homeless? And it's really showcasing the people's lives. It's not necessarily saying how much like how horrible it is or bad or how the landlords are these evil people, because it shows both perspectives. Landlords struggling and the renters are people who are trying to just survive struggling and what their days are like and how they're trying to go through it. And I think a lot of times it just helps you understand the story of another person, gives a little more empathy versus a lot of times for me, I'm like, oh, they're poor and this and this. It's like, no, just try to understand it. I definitely recommend Evicted. And the last book I read that I definitely recommend is called Paris in the Present Tense. And this is from Tyson Cole of Uchiko. You can go check out our podcast. I'll put a link in the description below. And so this book was really interesting why I liked it so much. It was about a guy who just works out. He's 70. His wife died. There's not much actually interesting about him. But then the story starts weaving in a lot of historical stuff from the Holocaust, World War II, about his daughter's kid dying, his wife dying, and this crazy adventure he ends up going on to actually make it an amazing story. And it really weaves in a lot of history and stories about Paris, which I was surprised how much I liked. I got a lot of these books, by the way. I want to put a plug, my sponsor of this video, to the library. If you guys don't go to the library, the books are free. I get the audiobooks and Kindle books from the library, so go check that out. Sponsored by your public library. Make sure you leave a comment. I want to know what books that you've read this summer that you really, really loved. So hopefully I can add some new books to my reading list.